Hi again. Here's another story for Read Aloud. Today's story is Corgiville Fair, Main Gate by Tasha Tudor. Side note, corgis came to stay with us at Christmas because our daughter and son-in-law have 2 corgis. So we especially like corgi books around here. I hope you like it too. Have you ever been to the fair? We have a fair here in Berkeley County. I wonder if any of you have been there. And here is the picture that Tasha Tudor painted or illustrated of her corgis. I'll hold it close so you can see them. She dedicated her book to her corgis. West of New Hampshire and east of Vermont is a village. Its name is Corgiville. It has a church, an inn, a post office, a general store, and a war statue. It is inhabited by corgis, cats, rabbits, and bogarts. I wonder what a bogart is. You know about cats and rabbits, but you may not be familiar with corgis and bogarts. Corgis are small dogs the color of foxes. They have short legs and no tails. They are enchanted. You need only see them by moonlight to realize this. Bogarts are trolls. I believe they come from Sweden, but I'm not sure. The bogarts that live in Corgiville are olive green kind with spots. Their hair is moss, their ears are leather, and their arms come off for convenience when going down holes. They have long tails and smoke cigars and are apt to be wild. This story is about one of Corgiville's leading families, the Bixby Browns, and about the Corgiville Fair, which, next to Christmas, is the most exciting event of the year. The Browns live on a farm outside the village. There are Mr. and Mrs. Brown and 3 puppies, Caleb, Corey, and Katie. Mr. Brown raises racing goats. Corgis use goats instead of horses. On fair day, there is a rivalry between the Browns and the Tomcat family, who come from the other side of town. Mr. Brown is a first selectman and road agent. Mrs. Brown is a good mother and sees that all is in order at home and that Mr. Brown's slippers and pipe are in their proper places when he comes in at night. Caleb, Corey, and Katie go to school in the winter, much as you are, except some of you are not in school right now, but you're going to school at home. In summer, they spend their time, as everyone else does in Corgiville, getting ready for the fair. One summer, the summer this story is about, Cora was raising gourds to display at the fair. Katie, who was domestic, was making a complete layette for a rag puppy. Caleb was the busiest of all, for besides helping his father with the farm, he was training his goat Josephine for the grand race. The first prize was to be $100 silver and an enormous cup. So you can see why there would be a lot of competition. There is Caleb and the goat, and this is Edgar. Of the Tomcat family. And here is the 3 corgi children. Josephine was a spirited goat with a mind of her own and a voracious appetite for things that shouldn't be eaten, such as cigars, pillowcases, and flower beds. In fact, greed was her greatest fault. Every good day, Caleb worked with Josephine. He groomed her, and he polished her horns and hooves. And each Saturday, he drove Josephine to Mert Bogart's place, the bogs on the marsh. Mert and his brothers ran a fireworks factory. They also put on a daredevil show with old cars for the fair. There's Josephine eating some of the things she's not supposed to. Mert had a way with goats, just as gypsies do with horses. He was always ready to help Caleb with Josephine. He wanted Caleb to win the grand race. He especially wanted to see him win the prize instead of Edgar Tomcat. Edgar Tomcat was not popular in town. He was given to wearing loud patterned waistcoats and singing noisily on moonlit nights. This disturbed the more respectable citizens of Corgiville, especially the Reverend Borum Barkadiddle, who had hinted about these matters in some of his sermons, but without effect. The reason Mert felt as he did about Edgar was because of an incident that had happened at the town meeting last March. Edgar had tied Mert's tail to a chair during a heated argument over the school board. Nothing much had been said at the moment, but Mert was biding his time. Edgar Tomcat was beginning to have regrets, especially since he heard of Caleb's Saturday visits to the bogs. The summer wore away as it does in Corgiville with such a pleasant round of happenings. September came in with the smell of grapes along the roadsides and a touch of frost in the air. It was nearly time for the fair. The village hummed with activity. Last touches were put on the prize quilts. The best preserves and jellies were selected from the summer's labors, and the largest and most perfect vegetables were carefully harvested. The ladies of the Corgiville Congregational Church put on a splendid supper and had a meeting to complete the plans for their float at the fair. Each day, the sound of hammers could be heard at the booths were being put up and the grandstand strengthened. Mert's fireworks factory was going full blast. Everyone in Corgiville was doing something for the fair. Caleb felt a keen excitement. He was confident about Josephine and her potential for speed. He spent more time than ever over her appearance and her diet. He watched her weight like a teenager. Josephine was in perfect condition, but she was hungry. Mr. Brown commended Caleb for his perseverance, and Mrs. Brown thought anxious and melancholy thoughts about her son and the race. Mert Bogart suggested that Caleb put a padlock on Josephine's stable door at night. He said he didn't like the lay of the land over at Edgar's. "You never know what might happen," he cautioned, "especially at the fair. Don't leave her unguarded, not for a moment." Meantime, on the other side of the town, Edgar Tomcat was busy with his billy goat, Red Pepper. He bragged all over Corgiville about Red Pepper's superior qualities. Mrs. Horatio Rabbit said she had heard that someone else had heard from a friend's cousin's sister that Edgar Tomcat was betting on the race. "Making bets with money? How shocking!" It was the day before the fair and the exhibits were arriving. The tents were up and already there was a smell of fried potatoes and hot dogs mixed with the brisk autumn air and the scent of asters. Everyone was excited, but Caleb was the most excited of all. He felt sure Josephine would win. But would she? The suspense was tantalizing. He could hardly wait, couldn't he? At last, it was the day of the fair. Mr. Bigby Brown and the Tom Fathers gave speeches. They fired off the cannon that stood in front of the war statue. Everyone cheered and waved flags. The Corgiville band struck up a spirited tune, and the fair was officially opened. There was the big tent where vegetables, fruit, preserves, flowers, and fancy work were shown. There was the poultry shed, the goat and guinea pig barns, the ginger beer stand, the peep show, and the merry-go-round with the calliope and dashing wooden goats with flowing beards. There were runaway pigs and lost pup pies, tabby cats selling cotton candy. There were Bogarts with patent medicine remedies and old corgis with trained fleas. It was wonderful. There was a lot going on, wasn't there, in that picture? Caleb found it hard not to leave Josephine and visit the tempting exhibits. However, he remembered Mert's words of warning and remained faithfully by her stable door. He wondered what the rest of the family was doing. No doubt Father would be looking at farm machinery or talking cattle. Mother was probably comparing cakes and pies with Mrs. Rabbit and the church ladies. Katie would surely be with her Sunday school group in the fancy work section. Cora should be with her gourd exhibit, but she wouldn't be. She would be at the ice cream stall or the country candy stand. And what about Mert? What would he be doing? Probably setting up fireworks or working with the Daredevils. It was hard waiting, especially when lunchtime came around. Caleb saw everyone going into the lunch tents. He smelled the baked beans and the apple pie. He had eaten his own lunch before 10 o'clock, and now he felt painfully hollow inside. At this very moment, who should saunter by but Edgar Tomcat with some delicious-looking hot dogs in a basket. Edgar stopped and admired Josephine. Caleb was flattered. "I'm afraid you're going to give me some keen competition," said Edgar. "Well, that's what I aim to do, sir," said Caleb modestly. Edgar purred pleasantly. "You look hungry. Would you like a hot dog?" Caleb's mouth fairly watered. Edgar's feelings might be hurt if he refused, and besides, Edgar was being so sporting about Josephine. Caleb took a hot dog. Do you think Caleb should have taken that hot dog? Do you think Edgar is being nice, or does he have something else in mind? Edgar continued to talk in a flattering way, man to man, and Caleb felt pleased and important. But he also felt sleepy, and he rather wished Edgar would go away. In fact, he felt dizzy, and Edgar's purring sounded like a motor in his ears. Or was it a motor? Caleb didn't know, for he had fallen asleep in the straw. The hot dog contained a soporific powder. Oh no, what's going to happen? Edgar switched his tail maliciously and left, only to reappear a moment later with a box containing 13 heavy mince pies and 22 strong 5-cent cigars. While Caleb slept, Edgar fed all of these things to greedy Josephine, who gobbled them up with pleasure. She was tired of diets. She got rounder and rounder, and at the 19th cigar, she'd already eaten all the mince pies, she collapsed, groaning. Edgar Tomcat now left this deplorable scene purring loudly and feeling very much pleased with himself. Already he seemed to feel the jingle of 100 silver dollars in his pocket. It was a half an hour before race time. What do you think's going to happen? The bell rang for saddling and bridling. Still, Caleb slept, and Josephine groaned. It was 15 minutes before race time. The Browns were in the grandstand, watching and waiting. It was 10 minutes before race time. Caleb woke up. Mert Bogart was checking his rockets before leaving for the race when Caleb reached him, barking out the awful tale of what had happened. Bogarts are resourceful. Mert saw instantly that there was only one thing to be done. Grabbing an armful of rockets, he jumped into his tin lizzie with Caleb behind him and roared to the goat stables. It was 5 minutes till race time. They got Josephine up to her feet. Then, while Caleb saddled and bridled her, Mert ripped open the rockets with lightning speed and fed her as many as she would eat. The results were spectacular. Caleb barely had time to leap into the saddle when, with a fiery snort, Josephine tore out of the stable and toward the race gate. She arrived just in the nick of time. Bang! Went the starting gun. They were off. Spectators cheered. Dust flew. The soda pop Bogart dropped his basket and all the pop exploded. Edgar Tomcat gnashed his teeth as Josephine passed red peppers in a cloud of dust and flying pebbles. Caleb clung on for his very life. Mert twirled his tail and gave off sparks. The cheers turned to shouts, the shouts to yells. The grandstand shook with stamping paws. Josephine passed the finish line 5 goat lengths ahead, breaking all previous records in memory of the Corgiville's oldest inhabitant. She won, didn't she? The band broke into Hail the Conquering Hero Comes as Caleb and Josephine were led to the platform to receive the enormous cup piled high with 100 newly minted silver dollars. A wreath of roses was placed around Josephine's neck. Yes, she managed to eat some, and 2 handsome satin rosettes were attached to her horns. These she ate later. It was a great day for the Browns. The gun was fired again, and the spectators sat back in their seats. It was now time for the grand parade, which Caleb and Josephine proudly headed. They were followed by Miss Corgiville of the year, holding the trophy that they had won. Turn the page and you'll see the whole parade. Here's the beginning. And here's the whole parade. After the parade, Josephine was taken to her stall where, I'm sorry to say, she finished off her wreath and the 2 rosettes, and the wire included. As for Caleb and his family, they and all of Corgiville had a marvelous time. They thrilled to Mert's daredevils, who had never put on a more hair-raising show before. A number of rabbits fainted. They did up the pie-eating contest, the turkey shoot, and the midway. They had a big square dance at which Miss Corgiville led off the Virginia reel with Caleb, much to his embarrassment and pleasure. Evening found everybody hungry again, so they ate supper and waited until it was dark enough for the grand finale, Mert's fireworks. Such fireworks. They were the brightest and the noisiest and most dangerous, all the kinds one never sees anywhere. The rocket display seemed a bit short, but only Mert and Caleb knew why. The biggest bang came last with a shower of red, white, and blue stars. In their midst was a 20-foot American flag done in Catherine wheels and supercharged torpedoes. Then the band played "Good Night, Ladies," and everyone went home feeling there was just nothing, absolutely nothing, so glorious as the Corgiville Fair. Do you like fireworks? Our children used to get scared when they heard them sometimes. In case you would care to know, Corey and Katie each won prizes too. Josephine never ran another race. She couldn't. She suffered from chronic indigestion from that time on. Edgar Tomcat left town and nobody missed him. P.S. Caleb gave Mert $50 to make much needed improvements in his fireworks factory. The other $50 he put in the bank towards his college education. And a few more scenes of the fair. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a fun day. Bye-bye until next time.